Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Collecting Prince, the podcast. My name is Brian Walton, your host for today, and we are going to have some fun talking about the legacy of Prince, specifically focusing on the album project 1999. And we're going to talk about a little bit of the history and show you a few artifacts from that time period, but also be able to dive a little bit into collecting and how to collect music as well. So, first and foremost, good morning. Thank you for joining today. As always, we have some selections playing in the background, and we're making sure not to violate any copyrights. But we want to have some fun today and talk to you about how to collect the music of the iconic artist Prince, as well as related artists. And so we'll dive into some of that today. So, one of the things that we'll start off with is to say that 1999 was a landmark project for Prince. And understanding that at that time, he had already released For You, which was the debut, Prince in 1979, Dirty Mind in 1980, and Controversy in 1981. And so he had already built a track record of being bold and being daring. But 1999 was an amazing project. If you ask collectors or ask the general public, what album was the biggest one? Purple Rain was certainly the most commercial with the movie project, and that is an album project that we will look into in next week's segment. But the great thing about 1999 is that there were so many major hits, but they were different in many ways. And so some of the technology that he used the Linn drum machine, which at the time most people really were just getting into music technology. And so he was certainly ahead of his time in that respect, as he was in many others. But what's so great about 1999 is that there were literally so many hits on the project, and we'll dive into those shortly. But one question that I often get is not only why do I collect Prince music, but why is Prince music so collectible? And the interesting thing about that is that at the time when I started to think about collecting Prince music, which was in the mid to late 1980s in high school, one of the interesting things to me is that I knew that he was a very, very different artist. Not just because he was a little bit out there, he was a little bit bold, he was a little bit daring. Not because of that, but there was something about the music that it touched people across so many different spectrums. He was an international superstar relatively quickly, and I just felt and knew at that time that he was going to have a different kind of staying power. And We are rapidly approaching the 10-year anniversary of his passing, or commemoration of his passing, in April 2016. And his light has not dimmed a bit. In fact, in many ways, it's getting brighter with more people finding out about Prince and wanting to collect the music. So, yeah, he's just an iconic artist, and there are other icons out there, but that doesn't mean that their music, their memorabilia is collectible, because Prince, there's so much out there, but yet some of the things are so rare because they're very, very limited quantities. And we could talk all day long about the Black Album, the most bootlegged album project in music history, when Prince decided not to release that project, and then later release it. It was scheduled to be out in late 1987, and once it was pulled, it was ultimately released in 1994, with many of the limited editions of those reaching into the thousands as far as value. So um, it's just an iconic person, iconic artist, and certainly one of the greatest musicians of our time. And so just wanted to say, we're excited to welcome new guests to the show. We've been doing this for about a year now, going on a year, as far as introducing uh, the general public or people, or certainly longtime collectors to Prince and the collecting world. And we're excited to have any new guests or visitors to watch us today. Again, Brian Walton, longtime collector and collector of memorabilia, not just Prince, but across the spectrum. I actually am the curator for the Walton collection, which is over 10,000 artifacts surrounding Black culture from the Harlem Renaissance to the present, but a large portion of the collection is dedicated to the artists that we know as Prince and related artists that he either worked with or, in a sense, discovered or put out there himself. And so, yeah, we're glad to have you here. But today, all the talk that we're doing is about the project 1999. And so one of the things that we also like to share is, share a little bit of what was going on in the time period of the projects that we're speaking about, but also we like to share a little bit of the actual artifacts, the music itself. And so what I'm going to share with you now is one of the first what are called picture discs, where whether it's a 7-inch or a 12-inch or even a CD, where there is a photo or an image attached. These are always done in limited quantities, which makes them a little bit more rare. Scarcity is really the key to the value of anything collecting. But what I'm going to share with you today is this is to my knowledge, the first picture disc that Prince ever did for commercial release, and it is features two of the songs that are central to the 1999 project, and that is Little Red Corvette and 1999. And so this is an original 7-inch vinyl that it has a double-sided image for 1999 and for Little Red Corvette. And it is very rare, but not super rare like some of the other things that we show on the show. So, but this is one of the first. And if you are a collector, the first edition of something, the first thing, or limited quantities will certainly be what you're looking for. And yeah, this is one of those items. So what's interesting about it is the 1999 album project. And what I'm about to show now is actually the Japanese pressing of 1999. And you'll get a chance to see slight differences when we talk about a different press of an album from other countries. And each country has their own signature thing. Canada, you'll see the maple leaf typically on the back of the album. And then you'll get to know the different things that make a release unique per country. But this is the Japanese pressing of 1999. And this is actually one that is pretty rare because this is a sample. So this was produced even in smaller quantities because this was reproduced only for Japanese television, radio, and people at the record company. It was a copy for them for it to be played. So this is typically done just prior to the actual release, or leading up to the release, and so that it can be promoted properly. And so the OBI that is here, this is the information strip that you will find on album projects from Japan, and even on CDs. They're different on CDs, but still the same concept. And so we have here a listing of the songs that are on this project, and you are talking hit after hit after hit after hit. So 1999, Little Red Corvette, Delirious, Let's Pretend We're Married, DMSR, AUTO-matic, phenomenal song, Something in the Water, Free, Lady Cab Driver, which is a classic, All the Critics Love You in New York, and International Lover, one of those major slow jams that's really pushed the limits at the time. So this is just a sample of some of the different types of memorabilia. This is not a U.S. pressing. This is the Japanese pressing, and this one is more rare, simply because it is indeed a sample. So it's a promo. Um, is the best way to describe this. And just to give an example, this is actually a an international pressing from Warner Brothers, and this is from Germany. And this is Prince's Little Red Corvette. Whoa! Look at the sheen on that. Look at the sheen and the shine on that. That is beautiful. And so this is actually a German pressing of Little Red Corvette, and on the flip side is Lady Cab Driver. And so here is the cover of it. Phenomenal, phenomenal. Condition is a major thing if you're a collector. Is so what you would want to do is actually get things in the best condition that you can, because condition links to value. Uh, and so if you one of the things you also have to think about, if you can catch something that's rare, hold it, and if something else new comes out in better condition, try to get that, and then you may be able to pass that on to someone else. The first one. But hold the one that's in better condition, because condition really is everything. And as I move this in front of the camera, you can see the sheen and the shine on this. um, it still has a couple of slight blemishes, but for the age of it, wonderful. So this is a German pressing, and you'll get used to seeing the different types of labeling um, and stickers that they'll put on for promotional purposes. But this is a great one here. And so if we just look at some of the songs that were on that project, and if you want to talk about Delirious, very upbeat, a very catchy cyclical tune in 1999, which was at that time, you know, talking in a very prophetic sense, and looking back at and looking at it now, uh, as people were thinking that 1999, in a sense, symbolized the end or doomsday, and all of that. But we find ourselves currently today in 2026 in situations that are concerning as well. And so, as human beings, we have to understand the fragility of life, and we have to make very, very good decisions, and understand that time isn't promised to anyone. And so it's an opportunity for us to learn how to celebrate the moment, which is huge for someone at his age at that time to be thinking so far ahead, to say, life is short, um, enjoy it. And because we all have things in real life that we have to deal with, and problems and stresses of life, but understand that we're not here forever. And so 1999 is a mantra for that. And it's really great to see that not only have we passed 1999, but that's carried on, because many people often think of, if you want to describe people having fun, say party like it's 1999, and that's become part of the cultural language of the United States of America. And so 1999 was a major project. Um, and so Prince released it. It was a double album release in order to contain all of those songs. And so it gave us a really good dose of Prince and what would be to come later on. Because, of course, Purple Rain came later, but also Sign of the Times came later, which also had a massive array of hits. But more importantly, it also was talking about the moment, but also being thoughtful and mindful of the future. For example, Sign of the Times, which really is an iconic thematic song, where we look at examine what's going on in the world, and are we really moving in the right direction. So that theme is repeated, in many ways. Prince was trying to have us as human beings call attention to life, the value of it, and what are we really placing our hopes and thoughts into that aren't really leading us to anything better. So, we'll leave that there. But 1999 was a major, major, major project Iconic in the world of Prince, but iconic as it generated a number of hits. And at that time, it was a landmark project for Prince. And so people that didn't know him really got to see him. The music videos started to explode on the scene. Delirious, Little Red Corvette, those videos were played in rotation everywhere in the country and in many places around the world, which was a huge hit for Prince. But it really ushered in the era of Prince being someone that was constantly going to be on the charts from that moment forward. So certainly major release there. Type in the chat or send us a message about your thoughts about the 1999 project and what your favorite song was. Because there really are so many to choose from. Again, this is the Japan pressing, so it has the information. This is not a sticker. It actually slides on and wraps around the LP. But the beauty of it is it provides information. And so it's an additional promotional piece that is a part of Japanese LP releases. And so this actually shows some of his previous projects. Actually, it only leaves out For You, which was 1978, but you see Prince from 1979, Dirty Mind from 1980, and then Controversy from 1981. And you get to see that there. So really promoting the artist, um, and really, letting you know more information that a lot of our US releases did. But if we look at this series of songs here, I mean, there are so many songs here that really changed the landscape of music at the time. And so we get a chance to see a side of Prince where it's the raucous party person, but also someone that's thinking about, relationships, male female relationships, thinking about, where we fit in the world, but also making some social commentary as well, which he would continue to do through just about every project. So, 1999, a major an incredible collection of hits that would really lead us into the era where Prince is not just considered an up and coming artist, but it would lead us into the next project, of course, which was Purple Rain, which really took his star to new heights. But yes, here we are, 1999. Oh, and what's interesting about this is that if we looked at the releases. So Prince released For You, the first album project in 1978, and then the one titled Prince, Dirty Mind, and Controversy. Um, he had been forming his band for quite some time and honing who they would be. And this is the first time anyone, and this is hand drawn art by Prince. He drew the art for this. And what's interesting, for the first time, you actually see the mention. It's written there in reverse. He says, it says the end, but it also says revolution. And that was the first introduction of his band being known as The Revolution, which of course was a moniker that stuck and was certainly promoted heavily, in the next project, Purple Rain. So amazing, an iconic figure, certainly an iconic project. If you have it at home digitally, you stream it, or you have vinyl, cassette, or even if you have an 8 track, because these were done also on 8 track as well. Pull it out and take a listen, and you will find that even though this was done so long ago, the music and certainly the musicianship is timeless. And so this is a great project. If you wanted to say who was Prince, this is one of the projects that I would put up to say is one of the best examples of the breadth of his talent, ability, showmanship, and all of that. The only other album that I would consider to put up as, like if you had to pick one and put it out there, it would either be 1999 or Sign of the Times, because Sign of the Times was amazing as well. So, and also a 2 album set. So one of the things that I also want to share today, because we are talking about collecting prints, and we're talking about actually collecting the music. So beyond just saying, okay, this is the music, here are some examples of it. Let's really dive into collecting and what that's about. There are so many different decisions that one would have to make in the process of building a collection. In other words, once you choose whose music you want to collect, there are so many different forms of media for you to collect. We know that you can collect vinyl, which is the 7-inch 45s, or if you're going to collect the 12 inches and the LPs, there are cassettes. Many of the early projects from many artists, there are still 8-track tapes out there floating around, and those are very, very rare to catch, and very rare to catch still sealed and unplayed. That's really the goal if you are collecting to hold, is to get things in the best condition possible, and still sealed is actually the way to do it. And that's rare, that's rare because, people listen to music, they're going to tear the tear the wrap off of it and play it. And so it's going to get an incredible amount of wear, but the goal is to find something that hasn't been played, because you're getting something that is in like new or new condition. That's something to think about. A big thing about collecting music is, how do you store it, and how do you protect it? And so one of the things is that you have to think about is, okay, it's getting protective sleeves. This is actually a protective sleeve. You'll usually see it record stores, or individuals will put this around a project. It's very thin. I typically use actual album sleeves that are 3 mil thick, because you want some thickness to make sure they're better protected over time. And also, I actually have record protectors inside the actual sleeve. And so I'll share an example of that. I have record protectors. And so these actually are inner sleeves for records, and you'll get a chance to see it, because your goal is to make sure that you protect it from dust, protect it from scratches, because that value is significant and important. And I'll share a conversation about value and collecting in a moment. But this is actually a sleeve. So I will have the record. I will take the inner sleeve. I will take the actual vinyl media and take that out, put that in here, have the sleeve behind it, and then have the actual album jacket inside an actual plastic sleeve. Now, why do you want to separate it? Because whether it's on the shelf or sitting around, or any movement, the record is actually heavy, going up against the thin inner sleeves that are in the album jacket. And a lot of the album jackets, even that cardboard, sometimes it's not that heavy. That record will actually slip through, and you'll see seam splits and the actual vinyl coming through the record, and that really destroys the value of it. And so to hold it and collect it, you always take the vinyl record outside of that sleeve and put it in something to protect it. These are actually not that expensive. You can get it at Amazon or eBay, or if you have a record store that stocks these locally, it's always good to get something. So the record actually slips inside of here, and you get a chance to see that this is clear and see-through to show the record. But then there's a sleeve here that just protects it from any scratching or any damage. And that's important to do. So protecting the music, and then storage is, how do you want to store it? Do you want to store it in a drawer? Do you want to store it in crates of some type? And IKEA is very, very popular among collectors for storage, because they actually have wall units that actually break down whether you just want to have 3 drawers of records or a full wall. Kallax, Kallax, is one of the names of the storage units that fit the albums perfectly at IKEA. So that really is something to think about, how you store them. But storage of the music is critical, And so again, so many different types of media that you could have. Um, and I'll try to do a quick list right now. So listen as I try to go through just about everything possible to collect, certainly as it relates to Prince, but this applies to most other artists, though they may not have had so many different types of things created around their music. But we know the vinyl, whether it's a 7-inch record referred to as 45s, 12-inch records, which also would include LPs, uh, cassettes, and there are a variety of different cassettes that you could collect, 8-track tapes, CDs, limited edition projects, promotional things, um, posters, uh, press releases. Anything that's in house from the record company is always pretty rare because we know it wasn't produced in the large number of quantities that retail album projects were. And so that means it's going to be harder to get. And promotional items in general are always are harder to get because they're often destroyed. Record companies would send out what are called promotional flats, which is just the cover of the actual album project on one side, and then any promotional mention on the flip side. And so it would look like the album, but it would be flat, and there's no pocket for an actual album. But those are sent to record stores for displays, and any of those things after the album was not being promoted in the record store anymore. Those things were literally just torn down, thrown away. And so to retain promotional material is one of the major goals, and that would be counter stands, any of the promotional material in the record bins, whether CDs or records or cassettes. Any of those promotional items are pretty rare. There are also tour items, and so you could be talking about the program book from a tour, merchandise as far as clothing, T-shirts, hats, scarves. All of those things are produced for tours for people to buy. And those are in smaller quantities typically than retail releases. And so, again, scarcity is the key, condition is the key, and making sure that you can store it so that it retains its condition and its value. It's always good to have copies as a fan of the music. It's always good to have copies to listen to, but certainly those things that you want to hold on to a retainer that have some sort of value, those are the things that we find some way to put that away and keep that safe. Now, the last thing that I want to share is to talk about collecting the culture itself. So this podcast is called Collecting Prints, but in a larger sense, we're talking about collecting culture and popular culture in the United States. Um, would really not exist if we're not for Black music. And so what's interesting is that Prince is iconic. He's an iconic figure as far as what's considered rock, pop, but also he is a huge iconic figure as an African American artist. And he has stood on, um, rights for everyone and a variety of other things through his music and personally. And so we have to understand that collecting prints is also collecting the culture of the United States of America, and also collecting the rich history and culture of Black people here in the United States. And so what's interesting about that is that collecting is not just there's an opportunity to collect music and really collect music as art. And if you understand collecting music as art, you understand that it can also be monetized. You can get your collection valuated as far as how much it's actually worth, and you can get insurance for it, and you can actually work with a bank. And actually, if you needed to, you could actually loan against the collection because it is indeed art. And so we have to understand that there are opportunities to build wealth through collecting, substantial wealth, especially if you're talking about Prince. One of the most, the Prince fans are serious, and I'll use serious instead of saying crazy, but probably a little bit of both. But what's interesting about it is that they're very serious about hearing the music that he created, seeing the imagery, owning a piece of that. And so the fan base is incredibly strong. And there's a lot of money connected to that. As a matter of fact, on this particular channel, in a couple of hours, 10 a.m. Pacific time, we'll actually be doing a live auction and sale that is open to people. And if you join it, you will notice that many of the people on the actual auction that are purchasing items and asking questions, they're coming from all over the world. They're coming from the UK, they're coming from Australia, they're coming from Canada, and certainly all throughout the United States of America, because Prince really does mean something big to them. It's easy to understand that it was the soundtrack of our lives when we were younger. And so sometimes it's just the nostalgia of going back to those moments and those times and what was happening back then. But also, it's an understanding that this is the music of perhaps one of the most prolific and greatest musicians that we have ever seen. You know, and I will answer one thing that always comes up. What do I think about Michael Jackson? I think Michael Jackson was amazing. I think that we have to understand that the image that was put out there about Michael Jackson and the things that were said to destroy him all had to do with control, power, and control. Because we find out now that all those allegations had already been proven false by the time they got to the public, but it was meant to tarnish his particular image, and they're doing work now to try and repair that. But it's very interesting that they're doing work to repair it once the industry itself now owns back a lot of that, or stands in line to gain some of that in the future. And so they want to turn that narrative around that they themselves created about Michael Jackson, because they know that they can derive money from that, whether using his likeness or using his music in the future. And so they created the monster, and now they want to put it back in the cage. And so we just have to understand the politics behind the music. But Michael Jackson was iconic in so many different ways than Prince. We know that they communicated with each other and were likely very good friends. And so, which is, you know, people pit people against each other, but they had very different styles. Michael Jackson, hands down, I believe, is probably the greatest entertainer behind James Brown that we have ever seen in any form of music at any time in the world. And so we have to give him his credit and his due, but it's not a comparison or a battle between Michael Jackson and Prince. They were two different amazing stars at a level of stardom that we will likely never see, simply because the world is different and artists don't have an opportunity to grow and develop before your eyes. Because Michael Jackson, you saw him when he was a very, very young child, and you saw him grow up and see his evolution as an artist and as a humanitarian, and all of that. So no comparison there. They're two great icons. I'm focusing on Prince because that's what my collection is about, but I do have quite a bit of things from, you know, Michael Jackson and his era, as well as Janet, Jimmy Jam, and Terry Lewis, and the whole thing. But we're here talking about Prince, Collecting Prince, the podcast. Again, Brian Walton, your host, curator for the Walton Collection, over 10,000 artifacts and items from the Harlem Renaissance to the present. But on this podcast, we focus on Prince. And this week on Collecting Prince, we've been talking about 1999. We're glad to have you here to join us. We look forward to seeing you. If you have a moment later today, we will, on the same channel, on the Synergy channel, you will also have an opportunity to join an actual live Prince auction and sale online. So check that out. But if not, it's been great having you here with us today. And we look forward to seeing you next week when we talk all things Purple Rain. There's a little teaser back there, too. Yeah, that's actually the tour book, the actual tour book for Prince and the Revolution, going on tour for the Purple Rain project. But that's next time. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you then. Have a wonderful day. Take it easy.